Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, beauties, and a very happy new year. Wow, I am so excited about 2024. I've been setting my intentions for the year ahead and choosing a word, as I always do. And I realised that last year my word was trust, which was so perfect for what was created. And I really do feel like there was a real deepening into my trust of my own wisdom last year, through some painful initiations, of course, and yet I wouldn't choose it any other way. So I'm being very intentional about what I'm choosing for this year. And that said, we've an exciting episode to kick the new year off with an exploration of power. It's almost the perfect way to begin the year, actually. And if you would like to join us for the reclamation of your heart-led feminine soft power this year, so that you can open to your gifts and become more confident as a healer, then I'd recommend you take a look at our journey that's beginning on the 25th of January with archetypal aura. So this is a truly powerful way to set up your new year, and you can read more at nicolebarton.co.uk/aurum, which is AURUM. Spaces are limited and are filling fast, so I would recommend reaching out if you have any questions, and I can help you discover what is aligned. I'd also love you, if that's not aligned, to join us in our Secret Witch Society sisterhood, because we're really starting something new and exciting in there too. I'm not going to share any more than that, but you're very welcome to join us with other like-minded souls if you're feeling the longing for some community this year. Search Secret Witch Society on Facebook. We also hold a regular free Moony rituals too, so you're very welcome to join us in those if you are with us in the group. And we've also got an event on the 11th of January, which is a taster of our upcoming Aurum Crucible, so that is going to be gold. On The Secret Witch Show today, though, I am exploring the commonly missed initiation into womanhood that so many sensitive women who are born to be healers often experience, and how this can leave them feeling powerless and unconfident and fearing that the path of becoming a healer isn't for them, when in fact it is. In this episode, I dive into the rites of passage into adulthood that we often miss in today's busy, chaotic culture, which often sees the true heart-led soft power of the feminine as weak, lazy and shameful, and leads us to suppress ourselves and people please to fit in. I explore how even when we feel powerless and like a little girl in an adult's body, we are really being called into learning to heal our wounding around power, so that we can become confident women and healers who lead powerfully from body wisdom, heart and soul. Let's dive in. Welcome, magical ones. Oh my goodness, have we a gorgeous episode for you today. I'm so excited to dive into this juicy topic. And Happy New Year, by the way. So today we're exploring how to rise tenderly into adult womanhood and become a confident, powerful healer with archetypal gold. So there's a few different things to speak to here, but what I loved was how I was just about to press record earlier, and before I did, I was speaking to a soul sister, and I recorded this just before Christmas, and there's this kind of often around this time of year there's this pattern of like rushing, forcing and being busy, and often this can be a pattern that comes up for women who are wanting to be healers, women who are feeling the call to soul, and there's this kind of compelled response to just like busy, rush into Christmas. So I am too feeling that, and I've had a team meeting, well, not just one, actually 3 team meetings this morning, and then I also have a deadline, right, of recording this episode because it's Christmas. We need to schedule, we need to make sure it's turned around in quick time. So I've got this deadline today of recording this episode so that my team can turn it around in quick time, ready for release for you now to listen. And so there's this compelled sense, even in my own inner little girl, even though I've worked deeply with embodying my feminine power, which is another way of saying like rising into our adult womanhood, there's still this sense, this compelled sense of needing to rush, of urgency. And I can feel the impact of that in my body. Like if you think about how it feels to be busy, rushed, like it's just really tight, it's really tense. There's this kind of penetrative sense in my body. Tight, tense, feeling cold, like all the sensations that we often ignore are letting me know like this is not the way to create. And so it was beautiful and magical because I was speaking to a soul sister and something that she said like really illuminated, oh, this is happening for me. Like as I always say, like I'm teaching Aurum in January, and always I will have an experience of the remedy that I'm teaching from wounding. There will be like kind of, I always say, kind of like proves the remedy or rounds off the edges of all the wounding that we're still to heal. And so I will kind of go through my own little journey with Aurum, and it was so beautiful to see that, oh yeah, I'm teaching Aurum in this podcast, and already like the podcast has become this like masculine forced kind of like not adult womanhood, inner child creating, like they're trying to create for me. And so I just suddenly had this beautiful like, okay, feminine soul knows no time. Feminine soul really wants to create this episode, and I can create it in the most juicy, beautiful way possible. So I got my lovely hot cup of tea. I got a chocolate cake, which I've already just eaten. I'm not going to munch and talk at the same time. And then I've got my hot water bottle, my blankets, just like really realised that, oh, I can bring the feminine softness to this. And I can tell you there would have been a time where that wasn't available to me. Like before I had been on this journey of reclaiming my soul, of reclaiming the lost parts of my soul, my feminine power included, like I would have been it would have been unavailable to me to create that from a different place. It's only because I've kind of like cultivated this inner feminine power that I've been able to choose differently, and like almost like build the muscle to choose differently, because we're so used to, in this modern chaotic mundane world, having to sit and force things, like sit at our desk, hash it out, which is very much the way I used to create. Like there was a moment in time in this journey where I remember choosing differently, and I had no idea how that was going to get done. Like I just point blank refused to sit at my desk all day. And I was like, okay, I'm going to create this magically. I'm going to trust that I can create this magically if I don't sit at my desk. And I remember the moment where like I went out for a walk and I was meant to be creating a women's circle that was leading at the time. I can't remember what remedy it was now. I think it might have been Creatrix, which actually is very archetypal Aurum. And I remember saying, I'll go out into the wild and create it that way. And I had no idea, like I was terrified, because for me, again, part of Aurum's medicine, part of this power struggle is like being seen in our natural truth. Like my fear was, what if I show up at this circle tonight and I haven't sat at my desk and I show up and I've got nothing to say. I'm totally imperfect. People think I'm a weirdo. Like I'm just going to fluff it up. I'm not going to say anything. I'll just sit there and not speak because I haven't sat down and written it all out. And I remember going out and into the wild and receiving like such downloads of like little nuggets of wisdom and like little nudges from my body, like, oh, this is what you're meant to be teaching. And I remember it just so clearly, like I just suddenly saw, oh, we are creating in life. And it was the same like with this podcast, because that conversation with my soul sister before I pressed record reminded me that I can create anything from the feminine energetic if I choose differently into the energetic of adult womanhood, of softness, of tenderness, of soul. And in actual fact, that created even the intro to this podcast. So again, it's like I didn't have to force and think that through. It's just like, oh, this is what's alive. I'm going to speak from there. And so the irony is that as I had that conversation, I was already creating my podcast episode naturally, with no push, with no force, with no flow. And now I'm sitting down with my lovely cup of tea, my cozy blankets, and it's just like such a softer feel. But that was not available to me until I journeyed and walked this path into, in essence, into my initiation into the feminine, into my feminine power. And yeah, the second that I embodied that power, kind of powerful feminine energy today, I was able to choose out of that rush and choose into creating with ease. And the way of creating with ease was revealed. And that's essentially what I was speaking to a moment ago. But that's really what we're here to talk about, is how to rise tenderly into adult womanhood and become a confident healer with archetypal goals. So, as I said, there's a few things to explore here. Firstly, what do we even really mean when we talk about adult womanhood? Because it's like, well, what is that? And essentially, it is the rising into our feminine, into our heart, into soul-led soft power. That still sounds a little bit fluffy. So in simple terms, many women arrive at my door feeling, and somebody actually said this to me recently, which is beautiful because it's so beautifully articulated exactly how I had felt. And I was like, oh, this is juicy. This is perfect. Women will feel this. Like there's this sense of still feeling like a little girl in an adult's body. There's this sense of like not having control over our lives. There's this sense of not being able to choose what's in our hearts. And that's really what it means to rise tenderly into adult womanhood. It's about learning how to make more powerful soul-aligned choices. It's really about learning how to make conscious choices that help us to live in alignment with our soul. And also learning how to tend the frightened parts of ourselves, the inner little girl who's really creating for us, the young little girl who's creating from fear. She's in fear and she's at the moment in the driving seat. If we're feeling like we're a little girl trapped in a woman's body, that's because our little girl is kind of in the driving seat. We've not learned to step into that kind of womanhood era. And so what we need to learn, if that is how we're feeling, is that we can choose to become the woman that we long to be. And for many women listening to this, that will be a healer of some kind, a healer, teacher or guide, or perhaps just a healer of yourself. So it could be a healer for yourself or a healer for others. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the rise into womanhood and the impact of that. And in that when we do, we become more confident, we become more powerful. And then we also can talk a little bit to archetypal gold as well, as a remedy, the antidote for this challenge, if you like. And before we do dive in, I think what's helpful is to just begin to get a feel for the difference between the masculine and the feminine. And when I say the difference between the masculine and the feminine, I don't necessarily mean, okay, men and women. We're talking here about energetics. We're talking about like ways of being, about like an essence, an energy that we're talking to. And if we are feminine women, then it's likely we were born here to be in a feminine energetic. And please note, as I go into this exploration, I am speaking purely from my own embodied experience here as a woman born to this earth in a feminine body with feminine cycles and rhythms. Because that is my experience, and we can only ever really truly teach from our experience. So when I'm teaching, I will always be teaching from a place of what I have learned and embodied for myself that may be helpful for you, that may be serving for you. That's, I'm sharing my point of view that is activating something